Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to teach you a little trick that I developed when I started working with couples. So this is what I call the least or most charitable interpretation method. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's not too hard to do. So let me teach it to you, and this is something that you can try yourself. It's very easy, it's pretty simple. It works really well to help reduce misunderstandings, conflict, in relationships, and kind of drive healthier interactions. So it does work most effectively in asynchronous interactions. So when you're sending an email, when you're thinking about talking to a partner after you haven't seen them all day, when you're sending texts, things like that. But you can quickly use it in live interaction too if you get good at it. So let's dive in. So this tool can also work to grow one's self-awareness as well. It can kind of be used as an introspection tool, but let me explain it first and then I'll get into it, and we'll use an example too to kind of illuminate the point. Let's say that you live with your partner and you have a work outfit, some sort of uniform or t-shirt, something that you wear to work most days, and it gets pretty dirty. And so let's say you got home one day, you left it on the floor, and you woke up the next day and your partner had picked it up, cleaned it off a little bit, maybe washed it, and then they set it out for you. So your partner picked up this shirt for you, they cleaned it, they set it out, and you see it when you get up in the morning. Maybe they're already off to work. Now, using this trick, let's kind of explore this situation. So when we're thinking about what we might interpret to be the other person's reason or their purpose for behaving in whatever way that we're assessing, it kind of falls on a spectrum between the least charitable interpretation of why they've done that thing all the way over to maybe the most charitable interpretation of why they've behaved that way. So maybe on the least charitable interpretation side, the most uncharitable, the most hurtful, maybe the most negative assumption, because that's what these are assumptions about the other person's behavior that we could make. So maybe you've been not so great about picking up lately and they've been on you about it a little bit, and so your worst interpretation would be that they did it as a sort of passive aggressive way to tell you to pick your stuff up. Don't leave the shirt on the ground, don't make me wash your stuff, you're grown, figure it out, here's my reminder. So that's the least charitable interpretation. Not very kind to make that assumption about your partner, but maybe you've had a really long day, maybe you guys are in some conflict. It is what it is. That might have been the least charitable. Not to say that this is the assumption that you went right to, but we are going to take the worst, the least charitable assumption. Now let's go to the other end. How about the most charitable assumption? Let's say that the most charitable assumption is that they got up a little early and they were thinking about you, and they know that you've been working really hard and you don't like to wear a dirty shirt to work that day, but they didn't think that maybe you'd get up in time. And so they did the very thoughtful, very kind thing, and they grabbed the shirt, they cleaned it up for you, they laid it out. That's the most charitable interpretation. The kindest thing that they could have done, us giving them the most grace in what we assume that their reason is for behaving this way. So we have these two ends, and this can be applied to any situation. This is just the example that I'm making. You have these two ends, the least and the most charitable interpretation. Now, usually it's not one of either of those. Sometimes it will be, and that's important to pay attention to. So that's why I say this can help reduce conflict in relationships, but also be sort of a tool for understanding yourself and the sort of snap reactions or assumptions that you make. But let's think of it in terms of what we typically see. This is a really good tool to basically check our assumptions. What are we assuming about the other person? And what does this mean about us? Does it mean we've had a really bad day and we're being kind of negative, making some assumptions about other people's behaviors, maybe less charitable than we should be? And then when we find out the behavior later on, it's revealed to us that it's much more charitable than we thought. How many times does this happen to you? Is it very often that you're kind of surprised that you made some maybe meaner and more negative assumptions than you should have about other people? Maybe it's the other way. Maybe you constantly assume the best in people and they let you down, or maybe you sort of over assume the reasoning for other people's behaviors. And what does this mean? Is this a reflection of you? Are you often thinking in the most thoughtful and altruistic ways and engaging in that sort of behavior? That's great for you. And it would be cool if everyone in your life acted that way too, but maybe they don't, and maybe that's what you're seeing. And so I think as we do this technique, and a lot of times, I mean, make your assumptions on which way it's going to go, but move forward with curiosity, because we don't know which way it's going to end, usually. Now, if you do this a lot, you're doing this over and over with one person, and repeatedly you find that it falls on one end or the other. Let's say it's usually falling on the least charitable interpretation. That's a sign too. I mean, maybe that person isn't the best person to have in your life if all of the ways that they are behaving are kind of in the most possible negative interpretation you could have made. Maybe you've been surrounded by really kind and thoughtful people your whole life, and this person is just not the same. So, I mean, you can bring it up, you can try to broach that in the conversation, but really it's just a way for you to reflect on the ways that you assume other people behave and what does that mean about you. So I think a lot of times what we find is that it does end up more on the charitable interpretation side, on the more charitable interpretation. I think a lot of times we get really snappy in our judgments and can sometimes be more negative than we mean. So that's the benefit of this, is it kind of causes you to check your assumptions, because that's what these are, right? These are assumptions we're making about people. And when we're making these assumptions, you know, the old adage, I don't know if this is a Midwestern thing or not, but what they say, what my parents always said, is that when you assume, you're usually wrong. That's what I'm saying. They always said, when you assume, you make a ass out of you and me. My broad rule is just, when you assume, you're usually wrong. That's often the case. So don't make assumptions, ask questions, lead with curiosity rather than criticism. But this is a simple trick that you can use to help smooth over some relationships, help you assess the way that you interact with the world and how you really make conclusions about other people's behaviors if you don't have the full information. So thanks for tuning in today, guys, and hopefully this is useful to you.